the Allagash Waterway Abductions. On August 20th, 1976, 4 young men set out on a camping trip in the remote Allagash Waterway of northern Maine. Their names were Jack Weiner, Jim Weiner, Chuck Rack, and Charlie Foltz. They were all art students who loved spending time in the wilderness. One evening, they decided to go night fishing on Eagle Lake. Before leaving the shore, they built a large bonfire to guide them back to camp in the dark. As they paddled out onto the calm lake, they noticed a bright, glowing orb hovering above the trees. The object was enormous and pulsed with a brilliant, changing light. At first, they thought it might be a star or planet, but it was far too large and too close. Charlie Foltz flashed his flashlight at the object, trying to signal it. The orb immediately responded by moving toward their canoe. A beam of light shot down from the object and struck the water near their boat. The 4 men began paddling frantically back toward shore. The next thing they remembered was standing on the beach, watching the object fly away into the night sky. When they looked at their bonfire, they were shocked. The massive fire they had built just minutes ago had burned down to nothing but cold ashes. Hours had passed, but none of them could remember what had happened during that lost time. The men tried to put the experience behind them, but strange nightmares began haunting all 4 of them. Years later, they decided to undergo hypnosis to recover their missing memories. Each man was hypnotized separately, without any contact with the others during their sessions. Under hypnosis, all 4 independently described being taken aboard a craft. They recalled being placed on tables inside a brightly lit room. Strange beings with large eyes performed medical examinations on each of them. The beings communicated without speaking, sending thoughts directly into the men's minds. They told the men that they had been watching Earth for a very long time. The 4 men's accounts matched each other in extraordinary detail, despite being given separately. Researchers who studied the case found no evidence of deception or coordination between the witnesses. The Allagash Waterway abduction remains one of the most credible multi-witness abduction cases in UFO history. 4 men went fishing on a quiet lake and came back with memories that would haunt them forever. The Ariel school encounter, Zimbabwe. On the 16th of September 1994, something extraordinary happened at the Ariel school in Rua, Zimbabwe. It was a normal Friday morning and the children were outside playing during their morning recess. The teachers were inside the school building at a staff meeting, so the children were on their own. Suddenly, a silver disc-shaped craft appeared in the sky above the schoolyard. The object descended slowly and landed in a field of tall grass just beyond the playground. Over 60 children, ranging in age from 6 to 12, watched the craft come down. Some of the younger children screamed and ran away in fear, but many of the older students moved closer to get a better look. Then, small beings emerged from the craft. The creatures had thin bodies, large heads, and enormous black eyes. They moved strangely, as if they were not used to walking on the ground. Some of the children said the beings came very close to the edge of the schoolyard. Then something even more remarkable happened. Several children reported that the beings communicated with them, not with words, but with their minds. The children said they received vivid images and feelings directly inside their heads. The visions showed scenes of environmental destruction, dying forests, polluted rivers, and barren landscapes. The message was clear: humans were destroying the planet, and it needed to stop. After a few minutes, the beings returned to their craft and it lifted off silently into the sky. When the teachers came outside, they found the children upset, frightened, and trying to explain what they had seen. Many teachers did not believe them at first, but the school contacted a famous researcher named John Mack, a professor from Harvard University. Mack flew to Zimbabwe and interviewed the children one by one, separately from each other. He asked each child to draw what they had seen and describe it in their own words. The results were astonishing. The drawings and descriptions all matched in remarkable detail. Children who had not spoken to each other described the same beings, the same craft, and the same telepathic message. Their stories never changed over the years, even when they were interviewed again as adults. The Ariel school encounter is considered one of the most credible mass UFO sightings ever recorded. Over 60 children saw the same thing, received the same warning, and carried that experience for the rest of their lives. Betty Andreasson abduction, On the 25th of January 1967, Betty Andreasson was at home with her family in South Ashburnham, Massachusetts. It was a cold winter evening and the house was quiet. Then a strange pulsing light filled the kitchen, glowing bright orange through the windows. The lights in the house flickered and went out. Betty's family seemed to freeze in place, as if time itself had stopped for everyone except her. Then she saw them, small beings entering her home by passing straight through the solid wooden door. There were about 4 of them, with gray skin, large pear-shaped heads, and enormous dark eyes. The leader of the group was slightly taller than the others. Despite their strange appearance, Betty said she felt a sense of calm wash over her. The beings gently led her outside and toward a craft that was hovering near her backyard. She was taken aboard the craft and brought into a series of rooms filled with strange equipment. The beings performed some kind of examination on her, though she felt no pain. Then something happened that Betty would describe as the most powerful moment of her life. The beings showed her a vivid vision of a great bird bursting into flames and rising from the ashes. It was the image of a phoenix, a symbol of death and rebirth found in many ancient cultures. Betty felt the vision carried a deep spiritual message meant not just for her, but for all of humanity. The beings communicated that there was a purpose behind their visits to Earth. They said they had been watching humanity and that their message was one of transformation and hope. After the experience, Betty was returned to her home, and her family unfroze as if nothing had happened. For years, Betty kept the experience mostly to herself. But in 1977, she responded to a public call from researchers looking for UFO witnesses. Under careful hypnotic regression, she recalled the events of that night in incredible detail. Her accounts were so rich and consistent that they filled multiple books written by investigator Raymond Fowler. Betty passed every lie detector test she was given. Psychologists who examined her said she showed no signs of mental illness or deception. Her story stood apart from many abduction cases because of its deeply spiritual tone. The Betty Andreasson abduction remains one of the most detailed and emotionally powerful cases in UFO history. Jim Sparks Abduction. In 1988, a man named Jim Sparks from Florida began experiencing something terrifying that would change his life forever. He claimed that he was taken from his home in the middle of the night by beings that were not human. The beings had gray skin, large heads, and dark eyes that seemed to look right through him. At first, Sparks was filled with fear and fought against the experiences. But the abductions kept happening, again and again, over the course of 7 years. Each time, the beings took him to a strange room that felt like it was inside a craft. During these sessions, they forced him to sit in front of screens displaying strange symbols. The symbols were unlike any writing system known on Earth. The beings wanted Sparks to learn this language, and they were very patient but firm. Night after night, he was made to study and memorize the symbols until he could recognize them. Sparks said the process was exhausting and felt like a test he could never finish. Over time, he began to understand small pieces of what the symbols meant. As the years went on, something shifted in the way the beings treated him. They began showing him vivid visions of Earth's future. The images were horrifying. Polluted oceans, burning forests, and lifeless landscapes. He saw scenes of mass extinction where animals and plants were vanishing from the planet. The beings communicated that humanity was running out of time. They told him that if humans did not change their ways, the damage would become permanent. Sparks said the beings seemed genuinely concerned about the future of the Earth. They were not threatening him. They were warning him. After 1995, the abductions became less frequent and eventually stopped. Sparks decided to share his experiences publicly, knowing many people would not believe him. He wrote a book describing everything that had happened to him over those 7 years. Researchers who interviewed him found his accounts to be detailed, consistent, and emotionally genuine. Whether his experiences were real or not, his story echoed a theme found in many abduction cases. The message was always the same. Take care of the Earth before it is too late. Jim Sparks' story remains one of the most detailed and lengthy abduction accounts ever recorded.